Alright, what's up, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen? We're back. And I just wanted to revisit an old deck called Memnarch. And it took away care of my... There's my preview pane, there we go. So it's Memnarch. It's a deck that I haven't actually touched upon, at least on my channel, a long time. I did do a deck tech. I'll post a link in the description below. You can see the old one. This one hasn't changed very much. But I kind of wanted to get some of your input on some of the newer sets, what you think might work well, especially with this whole colorless matters thing that came out recently. Obviously, I can't put a devoid card with a... Can you put a devoid card with... No, I don't think you can. A devoid card with a red casting cost, even though it's colorless? I don't think so. See, this commander rules have been kind of confusing to me lately with the new colorless and devoid, and allowing you to tap for enemy colored mana now. You can actually now, if you steal, like I steal my opponent's mountain with Memnarch, I can then go and tap for red rather than just colorless, which is a little weird. But I'll talk about that rule change at another point. So the deck is Memnarch. He's a colorless commander, but within the commander rules, he can play blue cards because he's got these two lovely abilities in the bottom right. You can see you can make a permanent become an artifact for 1 blue. He is a wizard. You can't see the whole... It's getting cut off here. I don't know why it's doing that. But he's a wizard. And you can also tap 3 and a blue to gain control of target artifact. And that lasts indefinitely unless they kill or steal these things back. So I'm just going to go over the deck very briefly, hopefully. Well, I'm open to guys. You guys always have great ideas. I'm trying to work on a new commander. I haven't quite picked the right one. I really want to do one that was in the last commander set, not the most recent one, but the one before, the one where she's a green card and she gets back a land when she comes into play from your graveyard, and you can do fun land kind of things with her. I'm sure someone will post that in the comments below. So I'm running 38 lands, which is on the low-ish or / medium-ish side. But the thing about Memnarch is I do play a lot of colorless artifacts that ramp mana, so you don't want to get too mana heavy, because if you do, you end up with a lot of mana, which is good because you can use Memnarch to sink your mana. But then again, you don't want to just have a lot of mana and nothing to do with it. He's an expensive commander. And expensive commanders, even though they might have powerful effects like Memnarch, you're spending 7 mana, which is really pretty much later in the game unless you get a really insane fast start. And unless you want to try to protect him with backup, if you spend 7 mana, they, not dismember, but they destroy him or they shatter him. There's lots of people who play Acidic Slime, Shatter kind of effects in commanders, so he's not very well protecting himself on his own. You need to give him backup. Another thing with my deck is if you're looking through it really quickly, I don't play a lot of counter spells in this deck. I think I was playing with someone last night, and I think before the game even started, they said your deck is just loaded with counters, and they quit. Or they quit really early before I even did anything. Maybe I countered one of their spells. I think I used Mana Drain. Mana Drain's a really annoying one, but... I was actually like, I don't think I have that many counters. I went through and I counted. I think I have 6. And let's double check that. We have Force of Will. Man, this card is going to get so cheap. I remember how much I paid for this card, and now with the reprinting, I've been, what is it called? Extended Masters? Eternal Masters. This card has gone down in price quite a bit. But I like the old Therese Nielsen over the new one. This one feels more raw to me, and I think that's kind of the nature of the card. It's very just raw power. Have that card, Cryptic Command, which isn't just a counter spell. It can be used for other things, which is the nice thing about the card, obviously. Dismiss, which is a very lovely card. I think that's all my 4. I do have Glenalendra, which is a counter spell in a way, but is also a creature. I've got... I think I took out Hinder and Spell Crumple because their effects just kind of suck now. I'm thinking I'm either putting Dissipate in, or maybe the other one that Scries, that one that came out recently. Counter target spell, Scry, costs 1 blue. I was thinking about that one. But I actually deleted a lot of counters. I had Mana Drain, Counterspell, and I did have a foil Pact of Negation, which I think I'm going to bring back. I had loaned it out to a streamer. His name is Bara. If you check him out, twitch.tv Bara. Like back in July, and I had forgot all about it because I haven't been playing a lot of Magic. So let's put that back in, because this is the kind of thing you need to protect a 7 mana commander. Is you just don't want to spend 7 mana and just have him die the next turn. Pact of Negation is a nice one. People don't always expect it. Obviously, he has a pretty big drawback, and they have to pay 5 mana. It's like it's kind of like the reverse Force of Will, if you want to think of it that way. So, anyways, not very many counters. Maybe that's a bad thing as a blue deck, because people do expect a lot of counters. This deck is pretty weak against mono blue decks, unless you get a very fast start with mana, because you're just never going to win a counter war. A lot of mono blue decks on MTGO play, I would say, close to 20 counter spells. I know I've actually, briberied someone, looked through their deck, and they're running close to 20 counter spells. So you just really can't win a counter battle. You can't just wait to play Memnarch with protection, because by the time you do, they probably have 3 or 4 counters in their back pocket. And I actually ran into that not too long ago, and I was just like, I'm never going to win this game because the counter spells are just kind of insane. Anyway, so we're playing this many islands. I think it's 22 islands. And we have some non-basics. You can comment on any changes you can make. I have the Helmar Depths, fetch lands, which help with Sensei's top, thinning the deck. Also, when I'm playing Crucible Worlds, which I think is still in the deck, yep. Crucible Worlds helps you get your fetch lands, value, Dust Bowl, recurring, just land destruction. I know that's a hot topic. People don't like it. Berry Ruin, which I've never really been too impressed with it. I do notice that people, when they see Berry Ruin on the battlefield and they have a choice to destroy a land, they tend to go for this one pretty quick. I think a lot of people might be afraid of Mindslaver, so they see this, or they're afraid they'll destroy your best artifact and you'll just get it back. But this is one I could consider cutting. Ancient Tomb with old card frame. I love this art and this card frame. It's pretty great. Academy Ruins, which I haven't really... I don't know. Maybe I haven't played the deck enough, but I've never really found the effect to be helpful in my short experience with it. But maybe I'm gonna keep it in. Thawing Glaciers just helps you get some value. You can get, you have 22 islands, obviously. Temple of the False God. You do need a lot of colorless mana in this deck. Strip Mine, Crucible Strip Mine. People hate that. I kind of hate doing it. Sometimes I just won't do it. There have been times where I could just Crucible Strip Mine people and I don't, which isn't optimal play to do something that will help you win. But the Commander format is supposed to be a casual format. But there are times where you're so far behind on mana because there are decks with huge amounts of ramp, and Crucibling and Strip Mining someone is just a way for you to kind of keep yourself in the game, unfortunately. And just John Avon art is just awesome on this Strip Mine. I usually don't like the newer arts on the cards, but this is one of the few that I do. Seat of the Synod, you can check him up with Trinket Mage if you do need a land and you have all your other artifacts. He helps with Metalworker being, if this is in your hand, I have a Metalworker in the deck. Once he got unbanned from Commander, I snatched up a Metalworker as fast as possible because I had a feeling his price was going to spike. Here's Metalworker. This art is awesome as well. So basically, you can tap him to reveal any number of artifacts in your hand, and you can add 2 colorless mana for every card revealed this way. So pretty much any artifact in your hand is going to be great. I've had this sometimes where this card has been so awesome. People are like, wow, that card is so broken. Why did they unban it? But recently I haven't had him early, so he's done pretty much nothing. But he's still pretty cool. So that's probably one card from the last deck tech that I didn't have. Scalding Tarn for fetching, Reliquary Tower for hand size purposes, Polluted Delta for fetching, Rainforest for fetching, and then Mizra's Workshop. Pretty much an all-star in this deck, as you can see. I've had moments where people play Urborg, the mana that the land that turns all lands on the battlefield into swamps, where I can't actually cast any artifacts, but I need it to cast other things, and the Urborg has helped me. Just keep that in mind. And I always think that this Mizra's Workshop looks like a pumpkin or jack-o'-lantern. I love this one. The new one I don't like very much. Minamo. And this has dubious efficacy, I think, in this deck. I think I might want to cut it. You can untap your Memnarch to, like, blow your opponent out / untap and block with him. The main reason he's in here is because you have Arcanus. But the times where I've had Arcanus active and Minomo at the same time, I don't know if I've ever had that happen. Usually when Arcanus is active, you're just way so far ahead drawing cards that you don't really need to be doing this. And this might be better served as an island. As you'll see, we have lots of effects that want us to have islands. Also, this does get kind of screwed by non-basic land hate, so this is one that I could consider cutting. So I'm going to move that one to the bottom here. And I think Buried Ruin, I think I'll keep it in for now. And then we have our one drop / 0 drop slot. I just had to stack them this way so they could all be on the same page. Training Grounds. I mean, who plays Training Grounds, right? But it makes Memnarch's abilities all a lot cheaper. If you look at Memnarch, you know, you basically, this takes away 2 colorless mana from all his activated abilities. So his first ability only costs 2 blue. And then his second ability only costs 1 colorless and 1 blue. So that's a pretty nice effect for your commander, and it's a cheap card. Maybe it's not the best card to put in your deck. It also makes Candace's ability a little bit cheaper. I don't think there's anyone else that costs less. No, I think that's it. Anyways, I like this card. I've had good experience when this is on the battlefield. It makes stealing your opponent's permanents a lot easier. Plus, it's just an underused card, so who expects that? Mana Vault. You know, I need a Voltaic Key. I don't have a Voltaic Key in this deck. What am I thinking? Mana Vault, good mana ramp, gets your commander out there faster. Does have the drawback where, you know, if whatever you play gets countered or destroyed right away, you just take a damage for quite a while until you invest the mana to untap it again. Sensei's Top, always a nice one. Soul Ring. Mana Crypt, the brains, or whatever is going on the side of that. I always love the original Mana Crypt art. Everflowing Chalice. Okay, this card has been a problem for me with a V4. I'm so used to the old version where you go to cast this, and then it asks you how many times you want to kick it. But in V4, it says cast or cast with kicker, and just in my brain, I'll just click cast, and it casts it for 0 without even a second thought. So I've just spent, like, you know, 4 to 6 mana, or even just 2 mana, and I just got a 0 kicked Everflowing Chalice. So you have to be very careful, and I rage quit. I think I've rage quit on V4 since I've realized this probably 2 or 3 times. Sorry to my opponents, but it just puts you so far behind when you do something like that. Ancestral Vision, obviously a good one to draw cards. And that's kind of the 1-drop 0 slot in the Pact of Negation I'm throwing back in. I'm currently at 100 cards. I'm going to have to cut something. Therium Sculptor. Not seen too often. I remember this card was boss in Duels of the Planeswalkers on Match 2012 Duels of the Planeswalkers. That was what kind of got me back into Magic, so this card I do have a fond appreciation for, but making all of your artifact spells cost 1 less to cast is nice. Also, he's early fodder for your opponent's removal, which leaves people will destroy him because they're afraid of his effect, making everything else cheaper, but then that leaves your other guys, you know, a little less vulnerable, or maybe less likely to get killed. Gilded Drake, stealing your opponent's stuff. That's kind of what the deck does, and this is a very good card. And there are ways to get him back with bounce effects. Juicy Apprentice, just card draw, and then when you flip him, you can kind of get nuts. You can't see what he does when he flips. He becomes a, what does he become? A 3/5, I think. Why doesn't it tell me? It should be great. Should be written down. V4 is weird. But anyways, you can draw as many cards where X is the number of cards in your hands. You can go wild. Very nice card. Phantasmal Image, copying stuff. It used to be a kill spell for opponent's commanders. back when I first spelled the deck, but you can't actually do that anymore with the clone effects. You can clone your opponent's commander, but this used to be a 2-mana make your opponent sacrifice their commander spell. Maybe that rule was for the best. I mean, it was annoying spending 7-8 mana in your commander and your opponent, but play Phantasmal Image, let's just kill him for 2 mana. And another thing about this card is I actually drafted this one out of an M12 draft, which makes me happy that he's in my deck. Counterspell with the old Jace. I got this from the dual deck Jace back when this card wasn't reprinted. It was reprinted in another form. I think it was Vintage Masters. So now everyone's got the cool art, but he's blowing off Chandra. That's why his flavor text says that. I like this one better than the original counterspells. There's one of the counterspells I really dislike, but I just really like that one. Plus, this was from, I think, Duels of the Planeswalkers 12 when I first started getting back into Magic, so I kind of have a fond attachment to it. Mana Drain, I love this Mana Drain art. It's like jellyfish draining stuff. And I got the foil. This card used to be worth like 100 tickets. I got it for really cheap. But when they re-released this in Vintage Masters, the price plummeted. I should have sold it a lot sooner. But, oh well. I still have a sweet Mana Drain foil that I don't think a lot of people have. So, and I just like this art. Mark Teeden's got some very iconic art. I like this one. But obviously this card's really broken. I really hate that they changed the colorless symbol on all the old cards, but, what can you do? I get colorless mana. People, I mean, it hurts to get Mana Drain. Even on your 2 or 3 drop, this just puts you so far ahead. If I Mana Drain your 2 drop, I can then put a Thran Dynamo onto the battlefield or a Gilded Lotus or something like that. It puts you really far behind. Lightning Greaves protects your commander or any other creature. More ramp, Mind Stone, and then if you don't need mana, you just sacrifice it to cycle it. Nice card. Ristic Study, one of those most annoying cards to play against, especially when you have Grand Arbiter in your deck. Thirst for Knowledge, a nice one to discard. You can discard extra artifacts you don't need, like that, what do you call it, Seat of the Synod. If you don't need that land, just discard it to that. Just make sure that you don't discard 2 cards on accident, because it will let you discard 2 artifacts, or if you discard an artifact, it'll let you discard another card. So if you do discard an artifact, make sure you click OK. Don't keep clicking your cards, because you can get screwed over by Thirst for Knowledge on MTGO. Trigger Mage lets you get any of your 1-drop or less artifacts, so basically anything from this pile: Mighty Vault, Sensei's Top, Soul Ring, Mana Crypt, Chalice, and the Seat of the Synod. And then I should probably put in Voltaic Key in this deck, because I think it has F. I think I might have used to had it. Maybe I cut it because it wasn't doing its job. I think Voltaic Key should be in the deck. I don't know. What do you guys think? I think I cut something recently, and I just wanted to throw Fate Spinner in there because this card is so annoying to play against. And when he was been in my other decks, or I think he was in my Jaleva deck, and he just did so much work, or she did. But there's not really a good reason for her. She's in Mirrodin, so she's got some theme of the set, but I just like Fate Spinner. Just one of those cards that I really like. Grand Architect pumps your blue creatures, lets you make artifact creatures blue, and also lets you tap untap blue creatures to add colorless to cast artifacts. So synergizes very well with the deck, as you can see. Then we got some Planeswalkers Jace. I think I have every Jace except for the most recent flip card Jace, because I can't afford that one. Just a nice card. I don't think I've ever ultimated Jace in Commander. Ever. Usually you don't want to give your opponent's cards. By the time that I have this card, I usually have another Jace in my hand, so I'll just minus until he dies. It's even okay just to put him out there, minus him, and then he gets attacked, and you save 2 life and you draw a card when you're looking for answers. And then we have Muzzio, which I don't think was in my last deck tech, which was on V3. And this card's been pretty good. I liked him a lot. You just put that card right into the battlefield. So if you have your commander on the battlefield in Muzzio, you get to dig for 7 cards deep for put any artifact. And if this guy sticks around, he starts to really get you a huge advantage. And I haven't seen anyone play this guy in a long time. I think people forgot a lot about the Vintage Masters commanders that were introduced, except for, like, what's that guy? Dak Faden, he was a Planeswalker. People do remember him. Thought hell, this card is it would probably just be better if I made this my commander. But I really don't think this is a card. I just hate when this card summons commander. I haven't seen it recently. It's almost like the people who used to play commander like forgot that Thought Odell existed. I remember I used to run into this card like 3 times a day. Or maybe I just don't play enough anymore. But this one obviously has Island Walk, which a lot of people play islands. And it lets you search your library and you can exile an artifact and then cast it. So if they haven't cast their Soul Ring and it's not in their hand, which it usually isn't, you basically steal their Soul Ring, and then if they have islands and they can't kill her, she just keeps getting bigger and better things. What you can also do with her is if you see like a scary artifact like Mindslaver and you can't cast it, you can still exile it and they can never get that Mindslaver unless they have a way of getting things out of exile. So I've done that before when there's things that I know I don't want my opponent having and I don't really need later. I will just exile them. Vendilion Click. Great card. Gives you some offense/defense, and also lets you put things, that you don't want in your hand on the bottom of your library in order to cycle them. I actually haven't even drawn this card. I don't remember the last time I drew this card. It's like it is not even in my deck. More artifact ramp. Crucible lets you get back your lands, lets you protect yourself from land destruction, which does exist. I've faced mono land destruction decks, like I think there was a Jund land destruction deck where he played every red, green, and black land destruction spell possible, and I think I drew a Crucible and it was like I think he just quit. It was pretty funny. Metalworker we talked about. Shackles, which is a good reason to maybe cut Minamo and put in Shackles. Put another island in just to give that effect. I've had people scoop the Shackles because the card is that good. Power Stone. I like this card a lot. Comes into play tapped, which is a downside of it, of course. Metamorph fits with the theme of the deck. Doesn't kill opponent's commanders, just like Phantasmal Image doesn't. But with like Ethereum Sculptor, you can cast them for basically 2 mana, which is nice, and 2 life. Factor Fiction, I think I just threw this in because it wasn't in my deck. I did rework the deck a little bit. I don't even remember what I cut, but very good card. Glenolendra is just a staple. I also got this before they reprinted her in Modern Masters, so I overpaid for her, obviously. But having Persist and having basically you get to counter 2 of their non-creature spells, and then you have a way to like get her back into play, like bouncing her or God knows there's so many ways to do things like that in Magic. You can just kind of really frustrate your opponent. Dismiss we spoke about. Jace, I don't know if you've seen this card. He's not played too much. He got really cheap even when he was still in rotation. I don't know what happened, or maybe it was right after he rotated out. He used to be like almost 20 tickets, and I think when I picked him up, he was like 5 or 4 tickets. But he's nice. You get to get a little mini Factor Fiction right away. You can try to protect him. Usually you just want to just do the little mini Factor Fiction. His plus effect isn't that great. His ultimate can be awesome, but you can do what you want. It depends on the situation. If your opponent has a bunch of 1/1 power like tokens, obviously the possibility is good. But more often than not, I find that I have a lot of Jaces in my hand in this deck. Jace the Mind Sculptor. I think everyone knows what this card does. The Zendikar version's here. He's got sweet art. Card is broken. Fencer. Oh, I love Venser. Venser's one of my other favorite cards. If you have Venser in a Venser deck, he can do a lot of work. But the nice thing is, he's not really a counter spell, but he's kind of like I need a remand. That's another thing I need to think about. But you can protect your own permanents, bounce your opponent's permanents, bounce their spells back to their hand. Just overall awesome card. I should get a foil of him. He was probably too expensive and I couldn't find one. Cryptic Command. You get to choose 2 of these effects, and all of them can be pretty powerful. Just make sure you choose the right 2. I think there was that one time in V3 when you would go to play Cryptic Command, and you would click on the effect and it wouldn't tell you which effect was what. You just had to guess. You didn't know which 2 you were picking. Solemn Simulacrum, good with your artifact ramp. He's an artifact. Grand Dynamo, Big Boss Dynamo. Obviously a good card. And then this card, I don't know. I just kind of threw this in recently. I was cutting some stuff, and I was like, you know, maybe this card's good. It's an artifact. I could play the blue enchantment that has the same effect, but lets you put it into play right out of the beginning of the gates. Maybe that would be better. It's called Leyline of Anticipation, maybe? It's 2 blue, blue. Maybe that one's better. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Mol Director for value. You can either use it as divination or you can use it as a flyer and a divination at the same time. And it's a flying fish, which is awesome, even though they say it's an elemental. Acquire, steal your opponent's artifacts. Sometimes you cast this and they have nothing. I've cast this against some weaker decks and they have like Wanderer's Twig, and you're like, oh great. Or they have some kind of bizarre thing that, like a sword, I don't know, some random sword that's not even a sword of fire, feast and famine, just some random stuff. But still, I like the artifact theme. It fits the theme of my general, and there he is. Bribery lets you steal any opponent's creature. People tend to scoop to Bribery a lot, for good reason, because you know they'll all have Eldrazi in their deck. The one thing about Bribery that I'm always wary of, especially is in red and blue decks, is people do play things like Active Treason, or they play bounce spells. So if you get like their Consecrated Sphinx, or you get their Eldrazi, they can like Zell's Conscripts that thing and then attack you with the Eldrazi and wreck you. And the Eldrazi don't really have come into play effects. They have when you cast this effect, so you don't get that like draw 4 with Kozilek. You don't get that destroy target permanent or exile 2 permanents with the Kozilek of old and new. But just be careful. Sometimes Bribery doesn't do much. I've actually Briberied someone who had a 0 creature deck. That was a white-black like token. It was a cool deck. I think she recorded that game. But it was a really cool deck. And I like this card. Just keep that in mind. Force of Will lets you counter spell for free. I will counter someone's turn 1 Soul Ring. It's usually worth it. And I've still lost those games because sometimes the ramp can get out of control, but this is my force. This is my turn 1 Soul Ring protection. You just can't let people resolve turn 1 Soul Ring in most cases. You can still beat it though. And then Jace Memory Adept. He's been one of my favorite cards. I just really like him. But be careful, because you don't know who you want to be targeting with put the top card of his or her library into his or her graveyard. I've put, I think, like Squee Goblin Nabob into people's graveyards, or sometimes you want to put your own things in the graveyard if you have recursion. Like if you have Crucible Worlds on the battlefield and you don't have any lands to recur, sometimes you want to mill yourself, but then you'll mill your card and you're like, oh, why did I do that? But then that does make things like Buried Ruin better. It makes your Academy Ruins better, so just don't always mindlessly target your opponent, especially if they're playing, you know, Reanimator strategies. That's definitely when you don't target your opponent. Tamio, if you haven't seen, check out my last video with Memnarch. Tamio just saves the game. She can lock down permanents that you couldn't otherwise deal with, and her -2 can come into effect, and then when you get to her emblem is pretty much unbeatable if you have anything. If you have a counter spell in your deck and you have an emblem in your, you know, your emblem, you can just counter spells indefinitely as long as you have mana. And then I have some Time Walks, Temporal Manipulation. That's the only one I have. Huh. I don't have the other one. That's okay. I only need one, I guess. Deseret lets you search artifacts, untap artifacts. Very good with, you know, your Thran Dynamos, your Mana Vaults. Oh, you know what I did cut? I cut... what was that thing called? It taps for 4 and it costs 2 mana. Maybe I should put that back. What is it called? My knowledge is so bad lately. It is called... an artifact... What is it called? Oh. I don't know if this card is any good in my deck. Probably not. Basalt Monolith might be considered... Oh, it's the other Monolith. It's a Monolith. Monolith. Grim Monolith. Oh, this is a card I gotta think about. I don't know, I just haven't been impressed with it lately. What do you guys... I don't know. I've had this card be very good, and I've had this card be very just whatever. It has good art. Chippy does have good art. I don't know. I think maybe he's better than Vidalcan Orrery. Lets you get your commander faster. These are things. Thinking about this. Thinking about this. Okay. Future Sight. I love this card. Lets you play with the top card of your library revealed, which is a downside and an upside. And you can play the top card, so that lets you dig through your deck pretty fast. Oh, and we skipped. So, I mean, Tezzeret we briefly talked about, but lets you untap to target artifacts. So if you have cards like that cost mana to untap, like Arthran Dynamo, Grim Monolith, but just things that can make big mana. Also Gilded Lotus, which makes a lot of colored mana. Grim Monolith, even things like Worn Power Stone, even just this Soul Crypt, Mana Ring, Soul Crypt Mana Ring. I'm not talking right. But he's just good, and he also lets you search for any cost you want, up to 4 or maybe more if he's been ticked up a little bit. So you can, like, if you need a mana really bad, you can just -4 him and get like a Thran Dynamo, or a Solemn if you wanted a Solemn, or if you want to copy something, you can get a Metamorph. Like, I think I copied my own Consecrated Sphinx that I had stolen with a Bribery, so I had 2 Consecrated Sphinxes in play, and there was no way I was gonna lose at that point. Moving on, we talked about Future Sight, we talked about Treachery, one of the best cards, I think, in the deck. It's just stealing a creature and tapping your lands. If you have a lot of counter spells, obviously untapping your lands is very good, but it also lets you use your mana more efficiently. Not sure what's going on in this art, but anyways. Future Sight. Gilded Lotus. I do have the other Gilded Lotus, but I like this one a little bit better. I'm surprised I didn't have, man, he just passed away recently. The guy who did the art for Black Lotus. Alright, I need to make a mention of him. So, if you guys didn't know, the artist who did the original art for Black Lotus, also Blacker Lotus, and several other Magic cards that you've probably seen before, he passed away within the last couple of weeks, which is kind of sad. And if you listen to Mark Rosewater's, he's got a podcast. It's called Drive to Work. He had a really emotional podcast. So if you haven't seen that one, I would definitely recommend you listen to it. If you want to, it's Christopher Rush. And one thing that Mark said is that when they have like new iterations or new kind of plays on the same card, they'll have the original artist do it. So there's a card called Blacker Lotus, and so he had Christopher Rush do that with Gilded Lotus. They did not. I'm not sure what was going on at the point, but it would have been cool if Chris Rush had done this one. I don't know if Chris Rush did the other. There is also the other Gilded. Let me see. I'm just curious now. Gilded Lotus. Nope, someone else did that one as well. Anyway, I'm digressing. But yeah, it's kind of sad that someone who had the most iconic Magic art, and he passed away. And I think the Black Lotus. Who did the Black Lotus? That's the. I have to do owned. Sort by owned. I don't have any display. Quantity. Maybe non-collectible will work too. Alright, here we go. Let's see. There we go. They actually have the original art, Black Lotus, Christopher Rush, so there's no foil Black Lotus in this art anywhere that I know about, but that's just pretty cool that, Mark Rosewater did pay a tribute to him, and I just think, I'll dedicate this video to Chris Rush because, I mean, how can you not? The most iconic Magic card. Chris Ron did this one. He's still alive, which is good. But yeah, there's a Black Lotus for you. It's kind of interesting that they put the art into the game, but you can't actually get this card. I wonder why Magic Online does that. There you go. I don't have Black Lotus in this deck, although it would probably be very good. But sorry to break the news to you, but it's a sad story. I don't know how he passed away or why he passed away. I don't think he was that old. But if you have a Black Lotus, that's pretty cool. I don't have one. I wish I got one. I remember when eBay was still new, and I was just like a young teen, and I could have gotten Black Lotus. I think they were like about $100. They were like $100, and I was like, oh, that's so much money. So just I wish I had just bought one, just to have one. You know, it's a piece of Magic history, but I didn't. Well, maybe one day I'll make enough money where I can buy one just to have it, frame it, or put it on the wall. Because I don't think I would ever want to play with it. I don't have a vintage deck. So, talk about Mind's Eye. This lets you draw, whenever opponent draws a card, you can pay 1 mana and draw a card. It's a little bit slow, but when you have Artifact Ramp, when you have things like Wizard's Workshop, obviously it works in your favor. And I just really like this card. And it reminds me of one of the Brainstorm arts from Arcadian Masks, if you look at that. You know, we're talking about art. I like to talk about art. Brainstorm. Let me know if you think it reminds you of that. This is Edward Beard that wrote this one. Oh, and Christopher Rush also did one of the arts for Brainstorm. It's actually the one that I use most often. Oh, I have to change the filters. Alright, blue. Not this. Chris Ron did this one. Oh, he also did Black Lotus for Vintage Masters. This card and Mind's Eye remind me of each other, just the whole focus. And they were not written by the same person, but here's a Christopher Rush's Brainstorm. I own, I think, a playset of these. I think this one's pretty cool. I don't know what that is coming off of his back. But I'm just talking about Christopher Rush and Brainstorms and random arts. That's what you're here for. I'm going to record some videos about gameplay, hopefully soon, but you know, I haven't been recording a lot lately, so at least I'm making up for lost time with just lots of talking. Okay. Consecrated Sphinx is here. Whenever an opponent draws a card, you get to draw 2 cards. Pretty awesome card. You can go wild. I almost always say yes, unless they have a Consecrated Sphinx. And then you get into this huge Consecrated Sphinx battle. I don't know if you guys have ever had that, where you both have one, and you don't know whether to keep saying yes. What my rule of thumb is I keep saying yes until I have a way to deal with their Consecrated Sphinx. So, like with Grand Arbiter, there's like Swords to Plowshares, Path to Exile. You just say yes until you find that answer. You just have to. You just don't want that to keep happening because the game gets out of control. And then Arcanus, I love this guy. He's from an alt, I think it's Odyssey. So he's Legendary Creature Wizard. Tap him to draw 3 cards, and then another way you can protect him and bounce him back to your hand is 2 blue and return to your hand. One nice thing you can do with him in Lightning Greaves is attach Lightning Greaves to him, tap, draw 3 right away, and then if you have Omniscience, okay, you can cast spells for free. So you can, and if you have a lot of extra mana, you can pay the 4, or pay 2 blue if you have Training Grounds out. Tap him, return to your hand, cast him for free with Omniscience, attach Lightning Greaves to him, tap and draw 3 more cards. And if you have Omniscience, you're obviously drawing cards that you can hopefully cast for free, you know what I mean? So you can just draw a ton of cards, and that's one of the reasons I have Lightning Greaves in the deck. And I don't know if you've ever tried that. Omniscience, Arcanus, and Lightning Greaves. Draw a lot of cards, cast a lot of cards. Try it out sometime. Just not against me. Cage Sun. So it's another one of those. Oh, you know what I took out? I took out Gauntlet of Power because it was getting me burned. Because I was having less islands in play than my opponents. Oh, I think Chris Rush drew this too. Yes, he did. Gauntlet of Might, one of my favorite cards, my original Kiki Jiki deck. Dang, Chris Rush is just coming up a lot. Maybe it's a sign. But this card, Gauntlet of Power, I cut it because whenever a basic land is tapped for mana, so I'd always choose a blue in this case. You do play a lot of blue decks, and sometimes you do play a lot of blue decks who have a lot of just basic islands, and then you really don't want to give your opponents lots of mana. So this is definitely a double-edged sword. If you're playing a more obscure color like mono red, or if you're playing mono black, even mono white, it's a little bit safer, but blue is such a common color in Commander, and same with green. You just be careful. I was cutting this, just wasn't having good experiences with it. It was just sitting in my hand because I didn't want to cast it. So that's why I tried these stupid cards like Vedalken Orrery. Because I hadn't played with this card in a long time. I think the last time I played this card was when I was playing Feldegrim. That deck is hilarious. you haven't seen my Feldegrowth videos, go and look at my Feldegrowth videos. Those are really funny. I think I should link those with pop-up, because at least the playlist. Alright. So Cage Sun lets you double your own mana. It doesn't have to be a basic land, so any of your non-basic lands that tap for blue double the mana. And your creatures also get a +1/+1 bonus if they're blue. It's a pretty nice card. I love the art on this one. It's also New Phyrexia, so it's related to Memnarch and part of the Plane of Mirrodin. Duplicate, you know, it basically exiles a creature, and you get to replace the power and toughness with the power and toughness of the creature you duplicated. I just love this art. He's like, shh, it's gonna be okay, but it really isn't. I love duplicate. I need to get a foil one. I know some people hate foils, but I don't. Sphinx Luthien I threw in there. It's a 5. I think I drafted this guy too. It's a 5/6 flyer. And as the battlefield, you get to do Factor Fiction. So you get to, if you don't know what Factor Fiction does, basically you reveal the top 5 cards of your library, opponent separates them into 2 piles, and you get to pick which pile you want. So it generally becomes a 3-2 split until some broken card shows up, and then it's a 4-1 split, and then you have to make a decision on what's better. And I don't have a lot of like blink effects or bounce effects to really abuse him, but he's just a good card and a way to end the game. You obviously need to find ways to end the game. I don't have a lot of creatures. I have 20, but not a lot of them aren't very strong. And then good old Daddy Karn works well with all the colorless mana you make in the deck. He's not an artifact, so Mizra's Workshop doesn't work with him, but even if you exile a permanent and Kaldarn dies, you know, because he got attacked the next turn, if it was a problematic permanent, he's worth it. I remember I had 2 cards in my collection at one point. I don't remember how I had 2. But I had 2, and then I was like, oh, I'm just going to sell it. And I sold him, and he was like, I don't know, less than 20 tickets, and now he's like 35 or 40. Maybe he's come down. I should have kept him. What's better than 1 card, too? Darksteel Forge makes all of your artifacts indestructible. I don't have Mycosynth Lattice in the deck. I know there's some kind of combo with Mycosynth Lattice and Darksteel Forge, and Mycosynth Lattice I found is really hard to play against because just trying to tap the right colored mana is really confusing, and I'd rather not deal with that, so I'm not going to put that in the deck. But with this and Mycosynth Lattice, basically everything becomes an artifact, and everything you have is indestructible, and it's hard to lose unless they exile these things. But I like this card. I think did I open this card or did I get it really cheap? I think I got it for like 50 cents worth of tickets, so it wasn't very expensive. And then my friend Omniscience. I love this card. I love it a lot more than I should. Remember when this card was like 3 tickets? I think it's a lot more now. Because then I went to like that show and tell Omniscience deck in Legacy. But anyways, that's the deck. It's not optimal. It's not ideal. It has very few counter spells. I think it needs more artifacts, maybe a little less Planeswalker stuff. I don't know. What do you guys think? How long have I been talking for? Probably a long time. Oh, Jesus. It's a long video. Anyways, thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. What should I cut? What I could add. I know I haven't really touched anything from the newer sets, if you noticed that. But please, give me suggestions. And I noticed I lost like 8 subscribers the day that I posted that quick clip of my puppies. My puppy with his sisters. But I just had that video and I wanted to post it for a long time. And I was looking at it and I found it and I was like, oh my god, this video is cute. And I put it up and I think people got upset. I don't know. Maybe they don't like puppies. Or maybe they thought my channel was becoming a puppy channel. But, if you don't like a video, you don't have to watch it. But you don't have to unsubscribe because I'm not going to just post puppies. Maybe I'll make a second channel about puppies. But Teddy's a pretty awesome dog. He's not here to bark in your ear. Sorry about that today. So thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. Resubscribe if you unsubscribed. And just send me a nice comment. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully you sat through 44 minutes of talking. Wow, you guys are impressive. See you next time.